But the physical making of it at that stage when the clay's all ready is really fast. And then of course then you have to fire it and then you have to glaze it and then you have to fire it again. So the making part is only that's of course that happens to be the fun part too.
Of course. So now when you're putting the piece like the black one, when you put that into the garbage can, you can only do one piece at a time.
Yes.
Because as the pine needles burn down, if there were more than one thing in there, they would crash into each other.
Yeah, well, and after a while I learned to maybe finesse 2 or 3 pieces in.
Oh, really? Okay.
But it's better to just do one. And especially I tend to use a smaller garbage can.
Okay.
And then just one.
Just in case it'd be a smaller thing to have to put out.
Because they break. And then you go, oh, well, it'll be mulch for the garden.
Exactly. So you must have a very healthy garden.
Well, it's warm, and it's got a lot of pottery in it.
Yeah.
Or actually we don't put it in our vegetable garden, but it's in the flower bed to heat up the various flower.
Oh, now you were talking about having a lot of clay that you've just sort of acquired. Are there a lot of differences in the actual clay and the material itself?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
huge variety. I could go out in the backyard and dig clay, and there's many places in McMinnville that were brick factories. Brick is clay. There's a huge variety. Willamina, where the wood
the lumber
mill is. Well, they paved. There used to be a clay mine there, a clay area.
Oh.
They paved it over for their parking lot. But that clay is what's called cone tin, high fire clay that you could that would make dinnerware or anything that would last thousands of years. They paved it over for a parking lot. So yeah, there's clay. This clay is what's called mid-fire, and it's a cone 6. It goes to about 2,200 degrees, 2288 to be exact. And it is essentially dinnerware. You can, but cone 10, which is even higher, about 2,400 degrees, is dinnerware plus. I mean, it's the kind that come out of the big wood kilns. Now I fire a gas kiln and an electric kiln.
Oh, okay.
There's a number of potters, Rory here out in Sheridan, and Landry Dees, and a number of potters are do high fire. And you have me looking over there, and I lost my thought.
Okay, well, the wood fire, the high wood
yeah.
fire. I think maybe what they're going to do is show some of your images, I believe.
Okay.
Here we go, some images.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, the raku process, which is the black,
I love that.
is really challenging, as I've already explained. The wood fire is also really challenging because you get lots of crusty things, but it's also very limiting. So a lot of what I do, I like to play, and I like to make faces and creatures, and more recently I've been making birds and
really?
And animals.
Okay.
And as you can see, they're very playful, and the people will say, "Well, what is it?" Well, it is.
You choose.
Reality is really overrated.
I agree.
And so I allow one of the joys of clay for me is the playfulness of it, the ability to play and to just let imagination go and just watch what comes out. There are artists who preconceive what they're going to make and then make it. And there are artists like me who simply begin and then watch it emerge.
Sort of just drink your coffee and see what happens.
Yeah, and so like the creature of the animals that have been, and those are fairly recent, in the last couple years.
Okay.
The mammal-like things, and occasionally I'll get a request to make a particular animal, and I'll say, well, it'll be sort of like the spirit of the, of the animal, like that, as kind of a spirit of a dog, maybe a wolf, maybe a bear.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just trying to capture a sensibility and an impression rather than an exact image.
Well, it's like any kind of art. The more representational it is, the more it's associated with the things that we always, that traditionally have been associated. Something that's sort of abstract. People are free to read into it whatever they like, and kind of, use it as a springboard for their own imaginations. But I was thinking about this. It's kind of not, just listening to what you're saying about clay, it's not too surprising that that's where you sort of chose to go, because when you were working, you had a pretty intense job.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was kind of like a nice release for you, I'm sure, to just like lose yourself in another world almost.
Yeah.
And just
complete balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. The clay, it's a real gift to realize that it does balance. If you're in a job where you're talking all the time, to a place where you can play
and get your hands on something.
Yeah, physical.
Exactly.
You're in the kinetic world, and I tend to be a kinetic learner. That's how I learn. I have to do it. I have to feel it, and so, and the kind of faces that I've never really tried to capture. One of the things about faces is that it is almost. It's one of the first things our eyes see as we're starting to focus. We see on the expressions of our caretakers, and we begin to mimic them, and we begin to interpret them, and that's our beginning of our social world is the human face looking back at us as our eyes are starting to focus, and so it's deep in each one of us, the reaction to a face. So I try to keep them somewhat neutral. I don't try to, like little happy faces and those kinds of things. It's impossible not to do some of it, but I try to keep the faces somewhat neutral, so that people will be able to respond out of their own experience. And some people will see them as angry, some people will see them as sad, some people see them as, most people don't see them as happy, because I don't put the happy faces on, and you really have to work. I mean, but those are big cues.
Yeah, like this, the big happy face,
Yeah,
or, the big scowl face. But if it's just kind of a mellow, neutral face, you wouldn't know if if the image is pleased or displeased, really.
And the birds have been a real enjoyable for me to make, because one, people buy them. That's always nice.
Sure.
Which means they also are responding to them, and yet they're more minimal than the human face. They just have the beak. So a lot of what is coming out is in the colors and in the eye and the textures, and also I make things in rather small or different sizes. I don't really make big monumental work. So what that means is a lot of my work is gift, packaged gift size, and it also is the birds and the faces fit into people's lives in odd spots. That is, there'll be a little piece of wall between a door and a window. What the heck are we going to put there?
Exactly.
The faces and birds and animals fit in those kind of spaces, which means, to me anyway, that people are having them in their lives in these odd places, and they're going to surprise. I have a couple of collectors I have one collector who hides them.
Oh, how fun.
And she puts them in her potted plants.
Oh, how fun.
Or different places, and then as surprise. The idea is that then there's this being looking back at you that you don't expect.
I love it. I think that's great.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to be on the Art Harvest Studio Tour this year?
I'm on the tour this year. Took last year off, and prior to that was on for 6 years, 7 years, whenever it was. There in Carlton, Elizabeth, my wife, who's a felter and painter, she's also on the tour. She's next door to me.
That's always a great stop because you're right there, both of you, and both of your work is so different, but it's so complementary. I mean,
Yeah. And actually, she's been making, I'm probably a bad influencer, she's been making hats that are birds.
oh, how cool.
And with beaks, and feathers. And,
Oh, how interesting.
oh, yeah, and people just, it's entertainment. People love to put them on.
Of course, yeah.
It's like the Ben Franklin statue downtown here. People take pictures.
So, see, now for the Art Harvest Studio Tour, you guys could get one of those photo booths, and people could just charge them to go in with the dorky hats on, the goofy hats. And
well, people do take a lot of pictures.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, that's really nice to have us both. And people can walk between. I mean, we're 30 feet apart, her studio and mine, and so it makes a one-stop. 4 arts or 3 arts.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Now, Mike, are you showing your work anywhere else coming up prior to that, or?
Well, actually, in September I'm at the Union Block.
Oh, okay. You're the featured artist.
Yeah, and
okay.
and in November I'll be at the other coffee house.
Cornerstone. Okay, great.
I've always have pieces at Currents. I always have pieces, have for years at In Cahoots. Because a lot of my work also fits in the garden.
That's true. That's true. Now, and is your studio open? In general, are you open or not so much?
I'm not. I don't have regular hours. I'm open for appointment.
Okay.
And I'm there. It's a working pottery.
Right.
So it's. But I have folks who'll call me up and say, I'm going by. Are you going to be there? And yeah, they can come in. And a lot of times, I have a lot of work that's just in cardboard boxes. And I'm surprised the number of people who love to just go through cardboard boxes.
People. I think they're going to find the.
They do though.
The bargain or the unexpected. Before we close, Mike, I also wanted to mention that when you said Rory, I thought, I can't forget this, about your award-winning productions, television productions.
Yeah, well, yeah, I didn't mention that. Elizabeth and I do Meadow Lake Studios, and we do specials kinds of things. And yeah, we did recently win an award from the Alliance of Community Media for a special we did on Rory. The master potter and her wood fire kiln. It was quite a project. We started in October with them chopping wood and went all the way through the firing. Firing is 7 days, 24 hours, every 15 minutes.
Were you out there the whole time?
Not the whole time.
Oh,
but
my
we went
heavens.
out there. We were there at night. And
Wow,
people were
okay.
tired and rummy. And then you have to wait a couple weeks to open the kiln, and so then we went. So it took us 6 months to film.
My goodness.
And then we, edited and put it together and stuff. So it was really nice to get an award of excellence, first place in the Northwest, Best of the Northwest, for a half-hour video on art. And we really enjoy doing those. That's our retirement activity.
Well, I am very, appreciative of all the efforts that you put in, to this show and to the other work that you do. And also, I just want to say thanks for being a guest today, because I know you're usually on the other side of the camera, and it's really nice to hear about you and what you're doing. So we'll look forward to seeing you on the studio tour.
Okay, thanks, Lynda.